Nathan adjusted the hem of his hospital gown as he moved quietly between patients' rooms. The night shift was always heavier, silence broken only by the faint hum of fluorescent lights and the soft beeping of monitors. His foreign presence had long caught people's attention in this Tokyo hospital: blonde hair, blue eyes, and a manner that was calm yet cautious. When the emergency doors burst open, the steady rhythm of the ward cracked. Two men in dark suits carried someone inside. Their sharp presence didn't match the usual rush of ambulance paramedics. These men had an authority that silenced even the busiest nurse. On the stretcher lay a man in a soaked, half-unbuttoned suit, his hair slicked back from rain. Blood stained his shirt near his side. His eyes opened briefly, dark and cutting, locking on Nathan. "Doctor," one of the suited men barked. "Take care of him, quickly!" Nathan swallowed, forcing composure. "This way," he said firmly, guiding them into a private treatment room. The others waited outside, leaving Nathan alone with the injured man. The atmosphere shifted. Though wounded, the man carried an air of command. He reclined against the hospital bed as if he owned it. His smirk, faint but deliberate, made Nathan uneasy. "You're foreign," the man said in Japanese, his voice deep, steady despite the wound. "I am," Nathan answered, setting out the supplies. "And you're losing blood. Hold still." The man chuckled softly, ignoring the sting as Nathan cleaned the cut. "Not afraid?" Nathan's hands paused only for a second. "I've treated worse," he said, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of tension. The man leaned slightly closer, despite the pain. "Name?" "Nathan." "Renji," the man returned. "Remember it." There was no reason for the command to sound as heavy as it did, but Nathan found himself nodding unconsciously. Their eyes lingered. Doctor and patient, healer and dangerous stranger. The connection was fragile, unexpected, but real. The following day, Nathan stepped out of the hospital into the pale light of early morning. The air was cool, but his mind wasn't at ease. He tried to forget the man from last night, Renji, but the memory of those sharp eyes and that unsettling calm refused to fade. Hours later, while reviewing notes at the nurse's station, Nathan heard a familiar voice. "You work too much." He froze. Renji stood there, bandaged but already dressed in a fresh suit, as if nothing had happened. He leaned casually against the wall, drawing the attention of every passing nurse. Nathan exhaled. "You shouldn't be walking around yet." Renji's smirk deepened. "I heal fast." His eyes scanned Nathan openly, lingering longer than polite. "Besides, I came to see you." The words unsettled Nathan more than he wanted to admit. "Why?" he asked carefully. Renji tilted his head. "Because you didn't look away. Most people do." Nathan straightened, trying to distance himself. "You need rest, not conversation. And yet you're still here talking to me?" The silence that followed was charged, unspoken. Nathan wanted to argue, to insist he was only doing his duty as a doctor, but Renji's presence filled the space, steady and deliberate. "I don't mix personal and professional," Nathan finally said. Renji leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "Then I'll change that rule for you." Nathan's pulse quickened despite himself. He turned away, pretending to rearrange charts. Renji didn't press further. He only gave a quiet laugh, one that followed Nathan long after he left. And though Nathan would never admit it, part of him was waiting for their paths to cross again. The rain outside had just stopped when Nathan left the hospital. Tokyo's neon lights glistened on the wet pavement as he adjusted the strap of his bag and walked toward the station. His steps were steady, though his body felt heavy after another long shift. Behind him, muffled voices stirred in the narrow alley beside the main road. He didn't pay them much attention until he felt a shadow step too close. "Doctor," a voice drawled, mocking yet low. A group of men emerged from the alley, their stares sharp, movements calculated. Nathan froze, realizing these weren't ordinary passers-by. One reached for his sleeve. Before he could react, a familiar figure stepped from the opposite corner, hands buried casually in his pockets. "Step away." The voice was quiet, but it carried an edge like a blade. The men stiffened. Renji moved closer, his presence so commanding that the group faltered. He didn't shout, didn't raise his hand, but the danger in his gaze was undeniable. Nathan's breath caught. For a fleeting moment, he feared the street would turn violent, but the men retreated with muttered curses, vanishing into the dark alley they had crawled out from. Renji's eyes shifted to him, steady and sharp. "You shouldn't walk alone this late." "I can take care of myself," Nathan said, though his voice betrayed a tremor. "Maybe," Renji replied, a faint curve at his lips. "But not against men like them." Nathan wanted to argue, but the truth pressed against him. He hadn't even seen the danger coming. As they walked toward the station together, silence stretched between them. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy with something unspoken, a current neither wanted to acknowledge. For the first time, Nathan wondered if Renji's terrifying reputation was the mask, and this moment of quiet protection was the reality. Days passed, but Renji didn't disappear as Nathan had expected. Instead, he returned to the hospital again and again, always under some excuse. Follow-up checks, paperwork, meetings with administrators. Nathan noticed the small gestures. A book placed on his desk one evening, written in English. A thermos of warm tea left at the nurse's station with no note. None of it matched the image of the cold, ruthless man he had seen on the streets. One evening, Renji waited in the lounge. Nathan almost turned back, but the Alpha's gaze locked on him, pulling him in. "You read this?" Renji asked, tapping the book Nathan carried. "Yes. It's a favorite from home," Nathan admitted, surprised. Renji nodded once, as if filing that detail away carefully. "I thought you might like it." Nathan hesitated. Gratitude burned in his chest, but so did confusion. "Why do you keep coming here, Renji?" The Alpha leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable yet strangely softened. "Because I want to." Nathan's heart gave a quiet, reluctant ache. They talked longer that night than they had before. Not about gangs or wounds, but about simple things. Music Nathan liked, the food Renji missed from his childhood, stories from different corners of Tokyo. For the first time, the hospital walls didn't feel sterile. They felt warmer, filled with something Nathan couldn't yet name. The hospital was quiet that night. Corridors dimly lit, most staff gone home. Nathan remained on duty, though exhaustion pressed against him. Then it came. The strange, creeping warmth in his body, unlike anything he had felt before. His breath quickened, his pulse hammered, and a haze blurred his thoughts. His suppressants weren't working. He leaned against the wall, trying to steady himself, when he felt the shift in the air. An Alpha's presence. Renji appeared, his steps quiet but deliberate. His eyes narrowed immediately, reading the situation with unsettling precision. "Nathan." His voice was low, steady, grounding. "You're not all right." Nathan shook his head, words failing. I can manage." "No," Renji said firmly. "Not like this." Without another word, he guided Nathan toward a small, unused supply room. It was dim, quiet, away from curious eyes. Nathan's breaths came shallow, his body tense. Renji didn't touch him at first. He only stood close, speaking low and steady. "Focus on me. You're safe here. No one else will know." The haze in Nathan's chest deepened, but so did the strange comfort of the Alpha's nearness. Every word, every breath, seemed to anchor him. Time blurred in that small room. Nathan felt the storm of his body clash with the calm strength before him, and though nothing was spoken aloud, something unshakable formed between them. When the worst of it passed, Nathan's body gave out in trembling exhaustion. Renji steadied him, holding him upright without judgment. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Nathan whispered, eyes barely open. Renji's answer was quiet, almost a vow. "Because I won't let anyone else touch you. Not while I'm here." Nathan wanted to deny the way his heart throbbed at those words, but the truth burned too deeply to ignore. The hospital cafeteria was nearly empty, the faint hum of vending machines filling the silence. Nathan sat at a corner table, a cup of lukewarm coffee in his hands. His mind was heavy, replaying the night of his first uncontrolled heat. The memory of Renji's presence lingered, his voice, his steady grip, the way he shielded Nathan without question. When the chair across from him scraped, Nathan looked up. Renji was there, sliding into the seat with effortless confidence. He didn't ask permission. "You look tired," Renji said simply. "I've been working double shifts," Nathan replied, trying to sound casual. "Doctors shouldn't collapse while saving others," Renji countered, his eyes narrowing as if daring Nathan to argue. Nathan let out a short laugh, one that surprised even himself. "I didn't think you cared about hospital staff well-being." Renji's gaze softened just slightly. "I don't. I care about you." The words landed heavier than Nathan expected. He tried to deflect, focusing on his coffee, but Renji leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You can keep pretending my presence doesn't matter, but I see it in your eyes. You don't hate it when I'm near." Nathan's breath caught. He didn't respond, but he didn't deny it either. Later that night, as he left for home, Nathan found Renji waiting at the entrance. Without speaking, Renji offered to walk him to the station. Their hands brushed once, then again. Accidental, or maybe not. And though Nathan kept his gaze forward, his heart betrayed him, beating far too fast. The city was alive with noise. Shouts from a nearby club, traffic rumbling, neon signs buzzing. Nathan had finished his shift late again, this time carrying a folder of research he needed to review at home. As he crossed the quiet street near his apartment, voices cut through the night. Rough, taunting, unfamiliar. A small group of men blocked his path. "Foreign doctor, huh?" one sneered. "Pretty face for someone who plays with needles." Nathan froze, the folder clutched to his chest. Before fear could take root, the sound of approaching footsteps silenced the street. Renji emerged from the shadows, his expression unreadable, movements controlled but radiating danger. The men stiffened. One tried to hold his ground. "This isn't your business." Renji's lips curved into a smirk, cold and sharp. "Everything here is my business." No weapon was drawn, no fight broke out. But the sheer weight of Renji's presence drove the men back, step by reluctant step, until the alley swallowed them whole. Only then did he turn to Nathan. "You attract trouble too easily." Nathan swallowed hard, his pulse still racing. "Or maybe you're following me too closely." Renji's gaze held his, steady and unwavering. "If I didn't, you wouldn't be standing here." The words sent a chill down Nathan's spine, not from fear, but from the truth in them. As Renji walked him the rest of the way, Nathan couldn't ignore the thought pressing at the back of his mind. The terrifying Yakuza Alpha was also the reason he felt safe in a city that had once been overwhelming. The rain had just ended when Nathan left his shift, his steps dragging from exhaustion. He didn't notice the black car waiting near the hospital until the window rolled down. "Get in," Renji's voice carried through, calm but firm. Nathan frowned. "You can't just order me around." Renji leaned slightly, eyes narrowing. "You look like you haven't eaten since yesterday. I won't ask twice." Despite himself, Nathan climbed in. The warmth of the leather seats and the faint scent of tea inside the car surprised him. Renji handed him a small box. "What's this?" "Dinner," Renji replied. "Eat." Nathan blinked at the perfectly packed meal inside. "You had this made for me?" Renji's lips curved faintly. A starving doctor is useless. As the car pulled away, silence filled the space, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Nathan took a bite, trying to ignore the strange warmth curling in his chest. Later, at Nathan's apartment door, Renji didn't push inside. He only said, "Rest. I'll be back tomorrow." Nathan hesitated, then asked softly, "Why do you keep doing this?" Renji's gaze held his, unwavering. "Because I don't want anyone else to." Nathan's heart stumbled, caught off guard by the quiet intensity in his words. Nathan's body betrayed him again days later. The heat came stronger this time, unexpected and overwhelming, while he was alone in his apartment. He gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, breaths shallow, sweat beading his temple. A knock came. Then Renji's voice. "Nathan, open the door." He hesitated, but the wave of heat nearly brought him to his knees. When the lock clicked open, Renji was there, striding across the room, his presence grounding yet overwhelming all at once. "You should have called me." "I didn't. I couldn't," Nathan stammered, his body trembling. Renji's eyes darkened, but his movements were controlled. He guided Nathan to the couch, steady hands supporting him. "Breathe. Focus on me. You're not alone." The air thickened between them, heavy with unspoken need. Nathan's pulse raced as Renji stayed close, their gazes locked. Time blurred. The world outside ceased to exist. What remained was the storm of Nathan's body, the steady anchor of Renji's presence, and the undeniable bond pulling them closer. By morning, the heat had eased. Nathan woke weak but calm, Renji still at his side, eyes watchful. "You stayed," Nathan whispered. Renji's voice was low, protective. "Of course. Where else would I be?" Nathan turned his face away, hiding the faint flush creeping into his cheeks. Weeks later, Nathan sat at his desk in the hospital, staring at the file in his hands but seeing nothing. His body had felt different lately, fatigue, nausea, a strange heaviness. At first, he dismissed it as stress, but when he checked again, the truth was undeniable. His hands trembled as he held the test. Pregnant. The word echoed in his mind, both terrifying and breathtaking. He thought of Renji, of the nights when the Alpha had stayed by his side, of the intensity in his eyes, of the vow he had spoken without words. But fear clawed at him. Would Renji want this? Would he see it as weakness? Nathan tucked the test into his bag, forcing himself to calm down before his shift began. For now, he couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. But when he saw Renji waiting at the end of the hall, arms crossed, gaze fixed only on him, Nathan's chest ached with both fear and longing. The secret pressed heavily between them, but Nathan knew, sooner or later, the truth would surface. The soft hush of rain against Tokyo's glass skyline filled the room like a quiet metronome. Nathan sat in the modest comfort of his condo, a steaming cup of tea resting in his hands. He had grown used to the rhythm of the city by now, the blur of neon across wet streets, the echo of traffic below, and the way the world never seemed to rest. But tonight, his thoughts were heavier than the sound of the storm. Renji had been lingering in his life more and more, never forcing his presence, but never truly absent either. At first, Nathan had thought it was coincidence. The sudden visits after a late hospital shift, the unexpected car idling outside his apartment, or the way Renji always seemed to know when Nathan skipped dinner. But it wasn't coincidence. Renji was watching him, not with control, but with something deeper. Something Nathan wasn't ready to name. He set his cup down and pressed a palm to his abdomen. The sensation there was subtle, but Nathan knew enough about himself, about biology, and about the reality of his world to recognize the truth he had been keeping secret. Life had begun to grow inside him. The heat he had endured weeks earlier, when Renji had stayed at his side, had left a mark more lasting than he'd ever expected. And yet, he hadn't told him. Not yet. A knock sounded at the door, firm but not impatient. Nathan froze, his fingers tightening against his mug before he set it aside. He already knew who it was. Few people knocked on his door at this hour, and even fewer carried the presence that seemed to seep through the wood like smoke. He stood and opened the door. Renji was there, tall and imposing, dressed not in his usual dark suit but in a charcoal sweater and coat, rain dripping from his hair. The streak of lighter color at his nape caught the hallway light, but his expression was darker than usual. His eyes scanned Nathan quickly, tired posture, hesitant hands, before softening just slightly. "You didn't answer my calls," Renji said, his voice quiet but heavy, carrying both reprimand and concern. Nathan stepped aside, letting him in. "My phone died. I've been distracted." Renji moved past him, every step precise, controlled. The condo felt smaller with him inside, his presence filling every corner like a shadow. Nathan shut the door, nerves coiling tighter in his chest. "Distracted," Renji repeated, glancing at him. His gaze was sharp, but beneath it was a flicker of something gentler. "You don't look well." "I'm fine." Nathan gave a small smile, though it barely reached his eyes. "Just tired, long shifts." Renji tilted his head, unconvinced. He moved closer until the faint scent of his cologne, sharp spice and clean smoke, wrapped around Nathan. You don't have to lie to me. Nathan swallowed. I'm not lying. His words faltered, his thoughts scattering under the weight of Renji's gaze. Silence stretched between them. Rain pattered against the glass, filling the pause. Renji's eyes softened, his jaw easing as he exhaled. You keep pushing me away, he said at last, even when I've given you no reason to doubt me. Nathan looked down. It's not doubt, it's... He hesitated. His hand brushed his stomach unconsciously, and Renji's gaze followed the motion, sharp eyes narrowing just slightly. Nathan quickly lowered his arm, heart racing. It's complicated. Renji studied him, then stepped back, turning toward the window. The city lights painted his silhouette in fractured blues and golds. You think I don't know complicated? Nathan, my life is built on it. Every step, every decision, every breath I take is balanced on danger. But when it comes to you, there's nothing complicated about how I feel. Nathan's chest tightened. Renji... The Alpha turned back, his expression stripped of his usual smirk, his walls lowered. For once, Nathan saw him not as the terrifying heir of a Yakuza empire, not as the man feared in neon-lit alleys, but as someone standing unguarded before him. I've tried to keep my distance, Renji admitted, voice low, raw. Told myself it was enough to watch you from afar, to keep you safe without getting too close. But I can't. Not anymore. You've undone me, Nathan. I can't look at you and pretend you're just another face I happen to meet. Nathan's breath hitched. He had never heard Renji speak this way, never seen him this vulnerable. I don't want anyone else near you, Renji continued, his eyes locking onto his. I don't want to imagine anyone else taking care of you, or seeing you smile. I want it to be me. All of it. The good, the bad, the nights you're too tired to speak, the mornings you don't want to get out of bed. I want them all, if it means they're with you. Nathan's pulse pounded in his ears. He wanted to answer, but his voice wouldn't come. His secret pressed heavier against his chest, louder than his heartbeats. Renji stepped closer, closing the space between them. His hand lifted, hesitated in the air, then brushed lightly against Nathan's cheek. You make me want to be more than what I am, he whispered. Nathan's eyes burned. Renji, you don't understand. Then help me understand, Renji said. Nathan shook his head, words failing him. He wanted to tell him everything, that he was carrying his child, that fear and longing had twisted together until he couldn't tell one from the other. But the words lodged in his throat. Instead, he whispered, I'm afraid. Renji's expression softened instantly. His hand slid behind Nathan's head, fingers threading gently through his hair as he pulled him into a quiet embrace. The Alpha's warmth surrounded him, steady and grounding. Then let me be the one to carry that fear with you, Renji murmured. You don't have to face it alone. Nathan pressed his face into his chest, torn between confession and silence. The words balanced at the tip of his tongue, but he held them back, just a little longer. For now, Renji's heartbeat beneath his ear was enough. Tokyo never truly slept. Even past midnight, the streets thrummed with neon and restless footsteps, the air soaked in a mix of rain and exhaust. Nathan stood by the wide windows of Renji's mansion, watching the glow of the city lights from far above. From here, Tokyo looked distant, almost unreal, like a painting of motion and chaos he could never quite step into. He pressed a hand absently against his abdomen. The symptoms had grown more noticeable. Subtle nausea, lingering fatigue, the kind of signs a doctor couldn't ignore. He had read every textbook, memorized every medical guide, but nothing had prepared him for this truth. A child, his and Renji's, and he still hadn't said a word. The thought was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Renji's presence filled the room before he even spoke, his stride heavy, deliberate, a rhythm Nathan had come to recognize. He was still in his black suit, though the tie hung loose around his collar, his sharp profile illuminated by the reflection of the city. You should sleep, Renji said, voice steady but tinged with fatigue. You've had 3 shifts this week, haven't you? Nathan turned, smiling faintly. Says the one who hasn't rested in 2 days? Renji's smirk appeared, small but genuine. He approached, his dark eyes scanning Nathan as though confirming for himself that the doctor was unharmed. Then he shifted his gaze to the window, hands sliding into his pockets. There's been noise, Renji said finally, his tone cooling into business. One of the rival groups has been moving closer to our district, testing boundaries. Nathan stiffened. He knew Renji's world was dangerous. He had always known. But it still felt different hearing it aloud. Does that mean they're targeting you? Renji shrugged slightly, though the sharp set of his jaw betrayed the tension in him. They always target me. It's nothing new. But tonight I want you to stay here. Don't go out, not until I say it's safe. Nathan frowned. You're making it sound worse than it is. It is worse. Renji's gaze shifted back to him, firm, unflinching. They know who I am. They know where I stand. And people like that, they'll look for weaknesses. His eyes darkened. They'll look for you. Nathan's heart tightened, his throat drying at the words. The intensity in Renji's voice was terrifying and protective all at once, like standing close to a storm, but knowing it would shield you from the rain. I don't want you caught in this, Renji continued, softer now. I can handle rivals. I've been handling them all my life. But you... Nathan, you don't belong in this part of the world. Nathan lowered his gaze. Maybe not. But I chose to be here. And I chose to stay. Renji studied him in silence for a moment, then exhaled through his nose, his smirk flickering briefly back. You're stubborn. You like that about me? Renji chuckled quietly, the sound deep, almost disbelieving. Then, in one swift motion, he reached out and brushed a thumb against Nathan's jaw. The touch was fleeting, tender in contrast to the weight of his words. I like too many things about you. Before Nathan could respond, a sharp chime split the silence. Renji's phone buzzed on the table, vibrating with urgency. He moved quickly, answering without hesitation. A low voice on the other end spoke fast, muffled to Nathan's ears. Renji's expression hardened instantly, his shoulders straightening, his presence shifting from warmth to steel. Where? He demanded, his voice low but dangerous. Another reply came, sharp and brief. Renji's jaw tightened. I'll handle it. Keep everyone else out of sight. He ended the call, sliding the phone into his pocket. Nathan stepped forward, worry clear in his voice. Renji, what happened? They're moving, Renji said, already heading toward the door. Too close to the hospital district. Nathan's breath caught. The hospital? They won't get that far, Renji cut in, his tone final. Not while I'm here. Nathan followed, catching his arm before he could step out. Then let me come with you. Renji froze, then turned slowly, disbelief flickering in his eyes. No. I can help. If someone's hurt, you don't understand. His voice was low, edged with something sharp. He took a step closer, his presence almost overwhelming. If you come with me, you won't just be in danger. You'll be the danger. To me. Because I won't focus on anything else if you're there. Nathan's lips parted, but no words came. The weight of Renji's admission hung between them like electricity. You're safer here, Renji said more softly. His hand lifted, brushing through Nathan's hair, lingering just long enough to ground them both. Wait for me. And then he was gone, the heavy sound of the door echoing through the condo. Hours blurred. Nathan sat by the window, unable to rest. Rain came heavier, the sky rumbling with distant thunder. Every sound made his heart leap. Every flicker of headlights outside set him on edge. Finally, the door opened again. Renji stepped in, his coat soaked, his shirt undone at the collar. There was no blood, but the exhaustion on his face spoke of battles fought in shadows. His eyes swept the room immediately, finding Nathan, and only then did his shoulders ease. You waited, he murmured, almost to himself. Nathan stood quickly, moving toward him. Are you hurt? Renji shook his head, removing his coat and tossing it aside. Not mine. His voice was quieter now, the storm in him settling. Nathan's eyes searched him, worry still pressing at his chest. You shouldn't keep doing this alone. Renji smirked faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. Who else would you have do it? Nathan hesitated, then whispered, You don't always have to carry everything yourself. The words struck deeper than Nathan intended. Renji stilled, his gaze sharpening, before he stepped forward, closing the gap between them. I've spent my entire life carrying things alone, Renji said quietly. But the moment I look at you, I don't want to anymore. Nathan's breath caught. Renji leaned closer, his voice low, almost a growl, but softened with something rare. You make me want to put the weight down, even if just for a moment. Nathan's chest ached with a mixture of fear and longing. He wanted to tell him everything, to let the truth spill out. But his voice faltered again. Instead, he reached up, fingers brushing against Renji's sleeve, grounding himself in the warmth radiating from him. I'll stay, Nathan whispered, if that's what you need. Renji's eyes softened. Not because I need it, he corrected gently. Because I want it. I want you here. The rain outside softened, fading into the distance. Inside, the silence stretched, heavy but not empty. For a long moment, neither spoke, both caught in the quiet storm of what had nearly been lost and what they could no longer deny. The storm had passed hours ago, yet Nathan still found himself awake in the wide guest room of Renji's mansion. He had been living here for weeks now, not because he had planned it, but because life had drawn him into the orbit of a man who terrified and fascinated him in equal measure. The bed was softer than the narrow cot back at his old apartment, the walls silent compared to the city's constant hum, but sleep came slowly. Nathan rolled onto his side, staring at the tall windows that overlooked the sprawling garden. Even at night, faint lanterns lit the stone paths and koi pond, swaying shadows of bamboo brushing against the glass. He pressed his cheek into the pillow, sighing. He was still a foreigner here, not only in Japan but in the mansion of a man whose very name commanded respect and fear. A soft knock broke the quiet. The door slid open, revealing Renji, still dressed in black slacks and a loosened shirt. His presence filled the room instantly, tall and sharp against the frame. You're awake, Renji said, his voice smooth, carrying the weight of authority even in a whisper. Nathan pushed himself upright, brushing his long blonde hair back. I couldn't sleep. Renji stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He moved with the ease of someone who owned not just the mansion but every space he entered. A faint smirk tugged at his lips. Is my home too quiet for you? Nathan's mouth curved in a half-smile. Too quiet, maybe. I'm used to sirens, noisy neighbors, all the chaos outside hospital walls. Renji crossed the room slowly until he stood beside the bed. He didn't need to sit for his presence to be overwhelming. You'll get used to it. Or, his eyes narrowed slightly, you'll start to enjoy it. Nathan lowered his gaze, feeling a strange warmth coil in his chest. There it was again. That pull he couldn't ignore. He tried to cover it with words. I'm still not sure I belong here. Renji tilted his head, studying him. You belong here because I say you do. It wasn't arrogance, it was fact, spoken in that deep timbre that brooked no argument. Nathan's lips parted as if to protest, but no words came. Instead, silence stretched between them until Renji broke it with a softer tone. You've made this place different. Nathan blinked, caught off guard. Different? Renji allowed himself a small chuckle, low and husky. Warmer, quieter in a way that isn't empty. Even the men in my clan notice it. They act sharper when you're around, more disciplined. It's irritating. Nathan raised a brow. Irritating? Yes. Renji leaned closer, resting one hand on the headboard beside Nathan, effectively caging him without touching. Because you remind them that I'm not just their leader. I'm also a man who notices you. The words landed heavy. Nathan swallowed, his pulse quickening. Renji. Renji finally sat at the edge of the bed, his sharp jawline softened by the dim glow of the lantern outside. For a moment, Nathan saw past the terrifying reputation, the ruthless Alpha Yakuza leader, and only saw a man who carried too much on his shoulders. "You should rest," Renji said, quieter now. "I'll try." Nathan hesitated, then added, "Will you stay?" The faintest smile curved Renji's lips. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he leaned back against the headboard beside Nathan. The gesture was casual, but the atmosphere thickened. Two silhouettes against the pale moonlight, sitting in silence, their hands brushing just once before stilling side by side. Morning arrived with golden sunlight spilling into the vast kitchen. Nathan had risen early, his routine as a doctor refusing to leave him. He brewed tea, his blonde hair tied loosely, strands framing his pale face. The domestic act felt almost surreal in a place like this, a mansion guarded by men in suits, where whispers of underground dealings moved through the halls. Renji entered with his usual quiet dominance. Even without a jacket, even with his shirt untucked, he looked every bit the man who commanded empires. He paused when he saw Nathan at the counter. "You're awake before me again," Renji remarked, pulling out a chair at the long dining table. Nathan poured tea into 2 cups. "Habit. In the hospital, mornings start before the sun." Renji's eyes followed him as he carried the cups over. Nathan felt the weight of that gaze like heat against his skin. He set 1 cup in front of Renji, who accepted it with a nod. For a few minutes, silence reigned. The kind not uncomfortable, but charged. Nathan sipped his tea, trying not to think about how natural this felt. Finally, Renji broke the quiet. "I've been thinking." "That sounds dangerous," Nathan teased softly, earning a low chuckle. "I want you to stop going back to your old apartment." Nathan's smile faded. "Renji, I know you still return sometimes. You think I don't notice, but I do? It's unsafe. You belong here." Nathan placed his cup down, exhaling. "It's not about safety, it's about me not losing who I am. That apartment was mine, something I earned." Renji studied him for a long moment, dark eyes sharp but unreadable. Then he leaned forward slightly, his voice softer but firmer. "You are not losing yourself. You are becoming part of something bigger, and I won't let anyone take you from me." Nathan's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, but Renji's words sank deeper than he expected. There was no demand in them, only an unshakable vow. After a moment, Nathan whispered, "You're possessive." Renji smirked. "You say it like it's a flaw." "It could be," Nathan countered, though his lips curved faintly. "Not with you," Renji said, his tone final. Later that day, Nathan found himself in the library, a vast room with towering shelves and warm lamplight. He had discovered it weeks ago, but rarely lingered. Now he sat curled in an armchair, reading a medical journal he'd brought from the hospital. Renji entered without warning, his steps quiet despite his size. Nathan glanced up, startled. "Do you always appear like a shadow?" Renji raised a brow. "Would you prefer I announce myself?" "Maybe," Nathan muttered, though a smile tugged at his lips. Renji crossed the room and took the journal from Nathan's hands, setting it aside. "You work too much, even when you're not working." "It keeps me sane," Nathan replied, meeting his gaze steadily. Renji studied him for a long moment, then lowered himself into the chair opposite. The firelight played across his face, highlighting the streak of blonde at the nape of his slicked back hair. "You're stubborn." "You knew that already," Nathan said, relaxing slightly. Renji leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "Yes, and yet I want you here, stubbornness and all." The words were simple, but they pierced deeper than any elaborate confession. Nathan felt heat rise to his cheeks, his pulse quickening. "Renji," his voice softened, almost uncertain. Renji reached out, brushing his fingers along Nathan's wrist. The contact was brief but searing. "You've changed this house," he said again, almost to himself. Nathan's lips curved. "And you've changed me, whether I like it or not." Their eyes locked, the room shrinking around them. For a moment, the weight of the world outside faded. The gangs, the hospitals, the secrets. It was just the two of them, bound by a thread neither fully understood, but neither could break. That night, Nathan returned to his room, expecting solitude. But when he lay down, he noticed the faintest scent of smoke and cologne lingering in the air. Renji's presence, impossible to ignore. He closed his eyes, heart racing. Across the hall, Renji sat awake in his own chamber, staring out at the moonlit garden. His thoughts circled only one truth. The foreign doctor had entered his world and refused to leave his mind. And though Renji had always believed power was his greatest possession, tonight he realized something far more dangerous. His heart was no longer his own. Rain fell softly against the windows of Renji's mansion, the steady rhythm echoing through the vast halls. Nathan sat at the edge of the bed in his room, his hands curled around a porcelain cup of tea that had long since cooled. His reflection in the glass showed a pale face, framed by loose strands of blonde hair, eyes that held more worry than he cared to admit. For days he had hidden the truth. The nausea, the fatigue, the unmistakable changes in his body, signs he had recognized instantly as a doctor, signs he could not ignore as an Omega. The possibility had clawed at him until it became undeniable. He was pregnant. Yet the thought of telling Renji terrified him, not because he doubted Renji's power or his ability to protect, but because this was no small shift. It was life-altering. For a man like Renji, Yakuza Alpha, feared across Tokyo, fatherhood might be seen as weakness. For Nathan, it meant surrendering even more of himself to a world he had never asked to join. He tightened his grip on the cup, whispering to the empty room, "What do I do now?" The door slid open without warning. Nathan jolted slightly as Renji entered, his presence filling the space as always. Dressed in his black suit jacket, still damp from the rain, he looked every bit the imposing Alpha. But his eyes, sharp and dark, softened the moment they landed on Nathan. "You're pale," Renji said, closing the door behind him. "You've been avoiding me these past days." Nathan forced a small smile. "I've just been tired." Renji walked closer, his gaze narrowing. "Tired doesn't make you hide from me." Nathan's throat tightened. He set the tea aside, trying to gather words, but they caught in his chest. Renji stopped in front of him, one hand slipping under Nathan's chin, tilting his face up. The touch was firm yet careful, as if Nathan might shatter if handled too roughly. "Look at me," Renji commanded softly. Nathan's sky-blue eyes met his. He wanted to lie, to deflect, but the weight of Renji's gaze made it impossible. His voice trembled. "I was going to tell you—" Renji's brows furrowed. "Tell me what?" Silence stretched. Nathan exhaled, his hand resting unconsciously over his abdomen. The gesture was small, almost unnoticeable, but Renji caught it instantly. His eyes followed, darkening as realization struck. The room thickened with tension. Renji's jaw tightened, his body going rigid, though his voice remained steady. "Nathan, are you?" Nathan's lips parted, the truth spilling out in a whisper. "Yes. I'm pregnant." The words hung between them like thunder. For a long moment, Renji didn't move. His hand slipped from Nathan's chin, fingers curling into a fist at his side. His chest rose and fell slowly, as though he were containing something powerful inside. Nathan's heart pounded. "Say something," he pleaded quietly. Renji's eyes lifted, piercing into him. "How long have you known?" "Only a short while," Nathan admitted. "I wasn't sure at first, but there's no doubt now." Renji's silence was unbearable. Nathan rushed on, his voice unsteady. "I didn't know how you'd react. You've already given me so much, I didn't want to trap you with this." At that, Renji moved. He stepped forward in one fluid motion and knelt in front of Nathan, his large hands coming to rest gently on Nathan's knees. The gesture was so unexpected, so uncharacteristic of the powerful Alpha, that Nathan's breath caught. "You think this is a trap?" Renji asked, his voice low, fierce but trembling at the edges. "You think I would see you, this child, as a burden?" Nathan's eyes stung, but he shook his head weakly. "I was afraid. That's all." Renji exhaled sharply, then reached up, his hands pressing against Nathan's waist, almost trembling. his head lowered, resting lightly against Nathan's stomach. The motion was reverent, protective, claiming, "You carry my child," Renji whispered. "And you thought I wouldn't want it? That I wouldn't want you?" Nathan blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. He placed a trembling hand on Renji's dark hair, feeling the damp strands beneath his fingers. "I didn't know what to expect. You're you. Leader, feared, always in control. I didn't think you'd want this kind of vulnerability." Renji lifted his head, his eyes burning with intensity. "You don't understand. This isn't weakness. This is everything I never thought I could have, and I'll protect it, with everything I am." The conviction in his voice made Nathan's chest ache. The fear, the hesitation, the doubts, each one cracked under the weight of Renji's vow. Renji stood, pulling Nathan with him until they were face to face. His hands rested at Nathan's waist, possessive but careful. "From now on, you don't lift a finger you don't need to. No long shifts, no late nights alone. You stay where I can keep you safe." Nathan frowned slightly. "Renji, I can't stop being a doctor just because—" "Yes, you can," Renji interrupted firmly. "Or at least you will scale back. I'll make sure of it." Nathan sighed, torn between frustration and an ache of warmth at the Alpha's protectiveness. "You're impossible." Renji's smirk flickered back, faint but sure. "And you're mine. Which means so is this child." Nathan's face heated, his heart skipping. "You make it sound like I belong to you completely." "You do." Renji leaned in, his forehead pressing against Nathan's, his voice dropping to a murmur. "Body, heart, future, you're mine, and I'll prove it to you every day until you stop doubting." Nathan's breath trembled. "And if I never stop doubting?" Renji's lips brushed close to his ear, not quite touching. "Then I'll never stop reminding you." The rain continued outside, but inside the mansion, the storm between them had shifted into something else entirely. Nathan stood in Renji's arms, no longer able to deny the bond that had been tying them closer with each passing day. For the first time since discovering the truth, Nathan felt not fear, but something startlingly steady. Safety. And in that safety, his heart whispered what his lips could not yet say aloud. He was no longer alone. The rain had stopped, leaving Tokyo washed in silver reflections. Nathan stood on the balcony of Renji's mansion, the cool night air brushing against his skin. He wrapped his arms around himself, trying to calm the strange warmth that pulsed through his body. It wasn't just nerves, it was deeper, something he had been dreading and anticipating at the same time. He felt him before he heard him. Renji's presence was always undeniable, a heavy gravity that pulled at him. The sliding door opened, and the Alpha stepped out, his shirt sleeves rolled, dark hair still slightly damp from a shower. "You shouldn't be out in the cold," Renji said, voice low. Nathan didn't turn immediately. "The air helps me think." Renji approached, footsteps measured. When he reached him, he didn't force Nathan inside. Instead, he draped a jacket over his shoulders, warm and smelling faintly of cedar and smoke. "Thinking or running away from what's happening to you?" Renji asked, eyes narrowing with quiet intensity. Nathan's heart jumped. He finally faced him, sky-blue eyes luminous in the moonlight. "You know, don't you?" Renji tilted his head. "I don't need to be told. Your body speaks louder than words. Your heat is coming." The admission made Nathan's breath tremble. "I was hoping I could hide it a little longer." Renji's jaw tightened. "Why hide it from me? You think I'd leave you alone to suffer through it?" Nathan searched his face. "It's not just the heat. It's what it does. How it makes me feel. How it ties me to you. I need to be sure it's not just instinct, Renji. I don't want us to be bound only because of biology." Renji stepped closer until there was no space between them. His hand cupped Nathan's chin, tilting it upward. His voice was steady, unyielding. "I've fought wars in business, in the streets, against rivals who would kill me without hesitation. None of that ever mattered. But you—" He paused, eyes burning into Nathan's. "You undo me with a single glance. This isn't instinct. It's choice. Every day, I choose you. Nathan's breath caught, and for the first time, the fear began to ease. He let himself lean into Renji's touch. Then stay with me. When it happens, don't leave. Renji's lips curved in a faint smirk. Try to push me away, and I still won't leave. Renji guided him inside, away from the night air. The bedroom was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of a lamp. Nathan sat on the edge of the bed, nervous energy running through him, while Renji remained standing, watching him with a gaze that missed nothing. Nathan broke the silence first. You're too calm about this. Renji raised a brow. Would you prefer I panic? That won't help either of us. A soft laugh slipped from Nathan despite his tension. You always know how to ground me. Renji finally sat beside him, close enough that their knees brushed. His hand found Nathan's, fingers interlacing. Grounding you is easy. Keeping myself from pulling you closer. That's the challenge. Nathan's chest tightened. You make it sound like you're holding back. I am. Renji's voice dropped to a near growl. Because if I don't, I might overwhelm you. The confession sent a shiver through Nathan. And what if I want you to stop holding back? Renji froze for a second, then his expression softened into something both dangerous and tender. He leaned forward, their foreheads touching. Then I'll give you everything, slowly, carefully, until you know you're mine in every way. Their lips met, hesitant at first, then deepening with each stolen breath. It wasn't rushed, it was deliberate, a promise sealed in the heat of their connection. Nathan's hand slid up to Renji's shoulders, holding on as though the Alpha was the only anchor in the storm building inside him. When they finally parted, Nathan whispered, I'm afraid of losing myself in this. Renji's thumb brushed across his cheek. Lose yourself then. I'll be here to catch you. Time blurred after that. The night stretched long, filled with whispered words, quiet laughter, and tender touches that never crossed into what could not be spoken. Nathan felt the warmth of his heat mixing with the steady strength of Renji's embrace. At one point, lying with his head against Renji's chest, Nathan murmured, Do you ever imagine what kind of future we'll have? Renji's hand rested protectively over his. I don't imagine. I plan. And my plan is simple. You, me, and the child you carry. A life no one can touch. Nathan smiled faintly. You make it sound easy. Renji kissed his temple. With you, it is. The mansion grew quiet as Nathan finally drifted into sleep, wrapped securely in Renji's arms. But the Alpha stayed awake, watching him with unguarded eyes. For the first time in years, Renji felt peace, a fragile, dangerous thing in his world. He bent his head, pressing a gentle kiss to Nathan's hair. You are my beginning and my end, he whispered, words meant only for the night. And I'll protect you until my last breath. The hospital lobby was alive with its usual rush of footsteps, ringing phones, and clipped voices. Nathan walked quickly, clutching a file to his chest. His coat, buttoned to the top, no longer fit the way it once did. The subtle curve beneath it was easy to miss for strangers, but not for Renji. Renji leaned casually against the far wall, tall and sharp in his dark suit, every inch the Alpha that commanded attention. His eyes locked on Nathan the moment he appeared, scanning him with a gaze too keen to miss the changes. Nathan avoided his stare, but the moment they stepped out into the night air, Renji's hand found the small of his back. Firm, steady, possessive. Don't, Nathan muttered, trying to step away. People will stare. Let them. Renji's voice was low, his palm unmoving. They should know you're mine. Nathan sighed, cheeks warming as they walked down the crowded street. Tokyo glowed in neon, but all Nathan felt was the weight of Renji's hand and the quiet truth beneath his words. Later, in the quiet of Renji's mansion, Nathan collapsed on the sofa, exhausted. Renji watched from the window, loosening his tie. You're reckless, Nathan whispered. Renji turned, eyes narrowing. No, I'm cautious. You carry something too precious now. His gaze flicked to Nathan's abdomen. Nathan instinctively covered it with his palm, his voice soft. It still doesn't feel real. Renji moved across the room, kneeling before him. His hand pressed lightly over Nathan's. His sharp features, often cold, now held reverence. It's real, Renji said, steady and sure. And no one will touch either of you. Not while I breathe. Nathan's chest tightened, and though his lips parted with hesitation, no words came. The air between them pulsed with a heat unspoken, a bond neither could deny. Morning light spilled across the bedroom. Nathan stood before the mirror, tugging at his shirt with a frown. The buttons strained. Nothing fit like it used to. Behind him, Renji's voice came, smooth and unyielding. Don't hide it. It suits you. Nathan shot him a look. Easy for you to say. You're not the one outgrowing half your wardrobe. Renji approached, rolling his sleeves, the casual grace of power and restraint. He placed a hand on Nathan's waist, his reflection meeting Nathan's in the glass. You're glowing, he murmured, lips close enough that Nathan's breath caught. Doctors see hundreds of faces, but you still don't know when you've become extraordinary yourself. Nathan's retort died on his tongue when a flutter stirred low in his belly. His hand flew there instinctively. I think... His voice broke into a breathless laugh. The baby moved. Renji froze. His palm pressed gently over Nathan's, waiting. A faint stir again. Subtle, yet undeniable. For the first time, Renji's mask cracked. That's our child, he whispered. Nathan turned, eyes wide, heart thundering at the softness in Renji's expression. You're really happy about this. Renji cupped his face, his thumb brushing along his cheek. More than anything in this life. That night in the mansion's garden, lantern light flickered against their faces. Renji poured tea into Nathan's cup, his hand steady. You're carrying our future, he said quietly. I want you strong, safe, happy. Nathan held his gaze, words softer than the night air. Then stay with me. That's all I need. And Renji, who had faced enemies and rivals without flinching, did not look away. Nathan pressed his palm over his stomach as he stood near the tall window of Renji's mansion. The night spread like ink across the city, neon signs flickering in the distance, but his focus was the soft weight beneath his hand. His belly had grown, rounding more with each passing week, and though it filled him with awe, it also made him restless. The door opened. Renji's presence filled the room, sharp yet grounding. He approached quietly, a predator who had learned how to tread gently around the person he loved. You shouldn't stand here, Renji murmured, lowering his voice. Nathan arched a brow. Since when are you worried about windows? Since you're standing in front of one, Renji countered, his tone half command, half concern. Before Nathan could reply, the intercom crackled. Boss, movement at the south gate. Unfamiliar cars approaching. Renji's eyes darkened instantly. He crossed the room, issuing crisp orders into his phone. No sound. Contain it fast. No one steps foot past that line. From the distance came faint shouting, a clash of voices muffled by walls. Nathan's breath caught. He wrapped both arms around his belly instinctively. Renji turned back, his cold exterior cracking for a moment as he pulled Nathan into his arms. His hand pressed firmly against Nathan's, covering the curve of his stomach. Look at me, Renji said, voice low but steady. Nothing will touch you. Not them. Not anyone. Nathan tilted his face up, catching the intensity in Renji's eyes. His heartbeat steadied. I trust you. Outside, silence fell. The threat had been dealt with swiftly, as always. Yet Renji didn't move, his grip lingering, his voice softer now. I thought I was untouchable once. Then you came, and I realized what it means to have something worth losing. Nathan's chest tightened at the confession. He leaned closer, whispering, You won't lose us. For the first time that night, Renji allowed himself to breathe. The mansion was quieter the next evening, guards posted discreetly outside. Nathan sat curled on the velvet sofa, a blanket around his shoulders, his hair loose and falling against his cheek. His belly was rounder now, a visible sign of the new life inside. Renji entered carrying a tray with steaming cups. Nathan chuckled softly. Didn't think I'd ever see you play house. Renji set the tray down, expression unreadable. You think I can't? I think you don't need to, Nathan teased. His smile faded as Renji settled beside him, gaze fixed with unusual softness. Renji reached for Nathan's hand and guided it over his own. He pressed their palms together on the swell of Nathan's stomach. He kicked again? Nathan nodded, eyes lighting up. Stronger this time, like he's already practicing to fight the world. Renji's lips curved faintly, almost a smile. Stubborn, just like his father. Nathan rolled his eyes, laughing quietly. If he's too much like you, I'll have my hands full. Their laughter faded, replaced by silence charged with meaning. Renji's hand lingered on Nathan's. His voice dropped, rough yet earnest. I don't say things easily, but you need to hear this. He turned, meeting Nathan's eyes. I love you. Not just because of what you carry. Not because of instincts. But because you are the one thing I never expected. And the only thing I want. Nathan's breath caught. His chest tightened, tears pricking unexpectedly. Renji. His hand gripped Renji's tighter. I love you too. Even when you're impossible. Especially then. Renji leaned closer, his forehead brushing Nathan's, breaths mingling. No kiss followed, no dramatic gesture. Only the steady, unshakable connection that tied them together. For Nathan, it was enough. For Renji, it was everything. The night stretched endlessly in the sterile hospital room. Nathan's body trembled with effort, his breaths ragged, hair clinging damply to his temples. Renji sat at his side, fingers gripping his hand so firmly it almost hurt. But Nathan welcomed the grounding touch. You're strong, Renji whispered, though fear laced his voice. Stronger than anyone I know. Hours dragged by, filled with whispers, reassurances, and the quiet strength of two hearts refusing to let go. And then, the sharp, piercing cry of a newborn broke the tension. Nathan's tears spilled as he cradled the tiny child laid in his arms. A baby boy, with black tufts of hair and features so delicate Nathan could hardly breathe. Exhausted but radiant, he gazed down at the small miracle. Renji hovered close, his usually cold eyes softened to warmth. Hesitantly, he reached out. May I? Nathan smiled weakly, transferring the baby into Renji's arms. The man who commanded empires held the child as though he were glass, every movement reverent. He looks like you, Nathan whispered, voice hoarse but full of wonder. Renji shook his head slowly, his expression breaking open into something raw. No, he looks like us. For a moment, silence wrapped them. Just the soft breaths of the newborn, the steady heartbeat of a father learning gentleness, and the weary joy of a mother who had given everything. Renji sat carefully on the bed beside Nathan, their shoulders touching, the baby resting against his chest. Nathan leaned into him, exhaustion finally catching up, but peace settling in deeper than ever. In the hush of that hospital room, there was no mansion, no enemies, no weight of the outside world. Only them. A family bound not just by instinct, but by choice. And for the first time, Renji allowed himself to believe in forever.